Dalrymple Proprietary Limited was incorporated in 1989 and issued 1,000 shares. Rena was issued with 500 shares and Jenna with 500 shares. Rena and Jenna are the directors of the company. In 1996, 500 redeemable preference shares were issued to a trust controlled by Jenna. The redeemable preference shares had one right. This was a right to receive dividends to be paid at the discretion of the directors. From time to time, the directors declared dividends on the redeemable preference shares, but there was no pattern to the amount or frequency of the dividends. In 2009, the company needed further capital and the directors decided to admit a third shareholder to the company. The company was valued at $400,000 at this time. The new shareholder was Kyra, and she was also issued 500 shares. However, the directors required that Kyra pay a premium for the issue of the shares to her. She subscribed $250,000 of capital into the company at a premium of $499 per share. During the course of Kyra's due diligence, prior to subscribing for the shares, her lawyers discovered that the constitution of Dalrymple made no mention of which shares were entitled to the proceeds of the company on winding up. There was a question as to whether the shareholders of the preference shares would have an entitlement to a distribution of surplus assets on the winding up of the company. Due to this, it was resolved that the constitution of the company would be altered to make it clear that only the ordinary shares were entitled to a distribution of surplus assets on the winding up of the company. The constitution was accordingly changed. What are the implications under the direct value shifting provisions with regard to the issue of the shares at a premium and the amendment to the constitution of the company? We will first consider whether there are any consequences under the direct value shifting provisions with regard to the shares issued to Kyra at a premium. For the direct value shifting law to have operation, there must be an affected owner of a down interest. When shares are issued at a premium, no shares in the company reduce in value as long as the total amount subscribed, including the premium, is at a value per share at least that of the existing shares. That is the case here. Prior to the issue of shares to Kyra, the value of each share was $400. Kyra subscribed for her 500 shares, paying $500 each. Accordingly, neither Rena nor Jenna are affected owners of down interests. It will be seen that Kyra's shares are not valued at the $500 per share she has paid. The value is $433.33 at the time of subscription, being $650,000 divided by 1,500 shares. These new shares are not down interests, even though, on one view, they have decreased in value. This is because the market value of these new shares was $433.33 from the time of issue. There is no time when they have been another value while on issue. Now we will consider the effect of the change to the company's constitution. When the constitution of the company made it clear that only the ordinary shareholders have any entitlement to a surplus of assets on winding up, on one view, the redeemable preference shares decreased in value because these shares now clearly had no such right. Nevertheless, the better view is that the value of the redeemable preference shares has not changed. The value of these shares would most likely be determined by the prospect of future dividends being paid in respect of these shares. Whether these shares have any likelihood of receiving some part of the distribution of surplus assets on the winding up of Dalrymple Proprietary Limited will not have any impact on the value of these shares. With this being the case, again, there are no down interests as a result of the scheme, and the direct value shifting law will have no application.